Good evening and hello world. This is Maya, and I would like to welcome you back to another edition of my podcast series, Hello World with Maya. And I have been up and running since 2013. I started out on YouTube and worked my way into WordPress. And I recently just started with the podcasts. And my main objective is to raise autism awareness and autism acceptance together. And I have a very special guest on the show. Tonight, I have Kayla Rodriguez with me on the air. And Kayla Rodriguez is a Puerto Rican and was diagnosed with Asperger's when she was a child, but she prefers to identify as autistic. Kayla is also diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Kayla is originally from New York and has moved with their family to many states, including Florida, Virginia, and Georgia. Kayla currently resides in Beaufort, Georgia. Kayla had difficulty in school and struggled to identify her passion for career. After high school, she made connections with autistic self-advocates and realized advocacy was her calling. She joined the Autistic Self-Advocacy of Atlanta, an affiliate group to the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, or ASAN. She then learned advocacy in the Bobby Dodd Ambassador Program with the Georgia LENT, the Georgia Leadership, Education, and Neurodevelopmental Disabilities Program, and the My Voice, My Participation, My Board program. Kayla is very talented in writing and speaking, and she has spoken in several panels, and she won a Golden Goldie Award for the Young Community Advocate. She just finished her first work experience, which was a paid internship at the Georgia Council on Developmental Disabilities, or the GCDD, and is currently figuring out what her next step is. Ladies and gentlemen, the first thing that I'm going to do before we start talking to Kayla about tokenism, I have a few announcements. So first and foremost, I will be interviewing Ashley Dudley, and that will be debuted next Sunday. And then I will be interviewing my other friend, Stepanie Holmes. And those are both regarding women and autism. And then I also plan on interviewing a surprise mystery guest. And then some other things you need to know is that I have podcasts, and they are fresh right off the press at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that is on a weekdays, Monday through Friday. And then I usually post my interviews on Sunday nights. And you can find these on YouTube as well, because I have a larger gathering on my YouTube channel. And you can find the archives on my WordPress page. And then you can also check me out on Spotify. And if you want to take my show on the go, you please be sure to download the app. So anyway, I'm about to dive right into the show. Hi, Kayla. How are you doing today?
Hello, world. I'm Kayla Rodriguez. Hi, Maya. How are you?
I'm blessed. And it was such an honor to be doing this podcast, especially during one of the saddest times in our country.
Yes, it's very scary time right now. The panel we were on is postponed because of it, unfortunately.
So that's why I decided to host an interview instead. That way we could get the word out there, and people would really have to hear what we have to say.
Brilliant idea.
Say what?
Brilliant idea.
Yeah. So I thought it would be a great way for me to grow my podcast and promote them out there. And maybe that by then we'll have enough followers by the time this all goes away, and we have plenty of people coming, that we could do a live show right on my podcast. And I have a microphone and a laptop, and all I would need to do is just set it up. And then I could do a live show and people could tune in and ask questions. So,
right. Yeah, that's a brilliant idea, Maya. Thank you for thinking about this. This will definitely make the panel, when it does happen, better. Also, before we get started, I just want to say, everybody, please make sure you practice social distancing and wash your hands and all of that, because this coronavirus situation is not playing around. It's very serious. So And I also just want to make sure that people with disabilities are having a harder time with this than neurotypical, like, people without disabilities. And we should highlight the struggles that people with disabilities are currently facing as well.
Well, Kayla, what you want to do is check out our website on the Center for Leadership and Disability. There are lots of brilliant resources on there. And the CLD is where I work. And I'm only bringing this up since you're talking about the COVID-19. But anyway, there's a saying, in the YouTube world, it's called Do What You Can't, which was put out by one of my favorite YouTubers named Casey Neistat. So in other words, you can't have a panel, but you can get a hold of the women who were scheduled to be on the panel and do an interview. So that's what I'm doing. I am doing what I can't. You're doing what you can't. And that's hosting an interview on tokenism and building up a brand and sharing info about tokenism. So
that is great advice, Miyah. Thank you.
Anyway, so did you check out the questions I sent you?
I did.
And I kind of edited them since. But so anyway, what we're going to do now is talk about tokenism. And this is Kayla's topic. She is going to be talking about this on the panel as well at the end of the summer. And as I told you before, Kayla is one of the lovely women that I will be in the panel with. And then Haley Moss will be our keynote speaker. She will also be doing an interview with me, by the way. And I'm still waiting to hear back from her. So,
Miyah, I have a question. Will Nike also do an interview?
Who?
Nike.
I haven't heard from her, but since she is on the panel, Jennifer is requiring all of the women to get on there to do the panel. I don't know. I mean, do an interview. I mean, Nake will be on the panel, but she's not flying in. She's going to do what Laura and Nadine did last year.
Right. Nike via Anuita. I don't know how to say her last name, but she's very accomplished too.
Yeah, she's working on her doctorate, and she's a college professor and a self-advocate. I've actually interacted with her before. She is a lovely woman, and she is best friends with Lydia /XC Brown. And then some of the other women we have are Ashley Dudley. She will be interviewing me in the next couple days, and then that will go up the following Sunday. And then I will be doing an interview with somebody who will not be on the panel. That's my friend Stepanie Holmes, and I was talking about her a little while ago in my announcements. But it's so exciting. So
yes. All right, you ready to get started?
Yeah. So what exactly is tokenism?
Well, tokenism is hiring someone just because they fit a certain criteria, not because they actually have the skills to do the job. So, like, for example, like I'm an autistic woman, right? And a company wants to hire me just because I'm an autistic woman. So the company will look like they're more inclusive and they're not like ableist. And not because I actually have the qualifications to do said job. They just want to hire me so they could look good and say, oh, they're not ableist. And this goes for like racism and homophobia. Like, you could hire a person of color or an LGBTQ plus person just because they're a person of color, or an LGBTQ plus person, or both, and not because they actually have the qualifications to do the job.
I've experienced tokenism in other ways, and I don't want to get into it there, but I've been put into situations where people used me to do something just because I had, quote, Asperger's, and I was the inspirational type. And actually, I do take it back. I did deal with tokenism in the workplace, and I've talked about my job thousands of times on this podcast. And I don't want to keep on bashing that company. But I was hired just because I had a disability, and the people at the top didn't care. They weren't supportive. I was just there, but then I wasn't.
I'm
So,
sorry.
yeah. Yeah. So now I understand that you're very passionate about tokenism. Tell us why.
Well, I am very passionate about tokenism because it's just not right, you know? Like, okay, like I get it. Like, I mean, like I understand, like companies really should be more inclusive and more diverse. Honestly, this should have happened like a long, long time ago. And it's kind of a shame that this is still something as a country and, you know, that we're still dealing with, that companies are still struggling to be more diverse. But, you know, tokenism is just wrong because it makes like the person like feel bad, you know what I mean? Because like it makes them feel like, what, oh wow, like, and this is kind of going into the third question that you sent me, like that the effects, was it like the effects that tokenism can have on employees? That was the third question, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and this is kind of why I'm passionate about tokenism. Because the effect on it could have on employees is that it makes them feel like, wow, like they only want me because I'm this or this, not because I'm actually qualified for the job, like not because I'm good at what I do. They just want me because I'm this or this, like I'm special, you know, like, and that's wrong, you know. Usually if they were like a white, non-disabled, straight person, you just hire them if they have the job or if they have the qualifications or not. But because you're like different from what they usually hire, you just hire them just because of who you are, not because you have the qualifications. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that really makes the employee feel really, really bad, because it makes them feel like, wow, like they don't value me as an employee. They don't value me as a valuable person to the job. They just see me as something to like boost their image. Does that make sense of what I'm trying to say here?
Yes, it does.
And
And
that's why I'm so passionate about it too, because it really isn't fair.
yeah. And so I hear you say that you would like to prevent tokenism from happening. I understand because people that do these kinds of things are often very selfish. And
Mm-hmm.
it breaks my heart for these people that get hired, or not just hired, but they get put onto things like advisory councils or boards. And as you know, both of us have done the My Voice, My Participation, My Board. I've actually taught that class before, or taught that. I don't know what you call it. I've taught a cohort before where
Yeah.
and one of the things that they've talked about with with the My Voice is issues like tokenism among disabled people, where they end up being asked to be a part of something, but they aren't. They are there to be seen and not heard, basically. And uh, what I don't like about tokenism is that I don't even know where to begin. But what I don't like about it is that these people seem to hire you, or they ask you to be on this thing, and then you build a relationship, and then you think, there's some more opportunities. And so you get your hopes up, and these people make it sound like you can do great, great things. But when it comes to moving you forward, they just kind of say, oh, we can't do this now. And they come up with any excuse. I need you to do this. It's really bad. And I hate tokenism.
Me too. Yeah. And also can I add that it's also, I don't really think it really is progress. listen, like, I know it's a must that we should make places more diverse and inclusive. Again, like I said, this is just something that should have been done like a long, long time ago. But you also have to make sure that, again, like, you don't just hire them just because they fit that criteria, like that's tokenism, and because tokenism isn't really making progress because they don't value, like you said, they don't value you as a employee, they don't value who you are. They just see that you fit this criteria, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to make progress, you have to value both your what makes you unique and what your qualifications are. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And see, any employer who would hire someone not, that cares about their employees would not be selfish like that. They might see someone that has a specific skill set and then help them build on that skill set, or tell them to do, or they recommend that they do a specific training, and then they just gradually build on those skills. But I think another part that falls into tokenism is people are so focused on the fact that somebody is autistic and not Kayla, or not Miyah, or not Haley, or not Ashley, or not Morineke, or not Dia, or Mimi, or Kimberly. And
right.
And not only are these people used, I find that the people who act like this, they're very condescending, and they get certain privileges, or they don't get certain privileges, excuse me. And I was just talking about this yesterday in my last podcast. I was talking about something called holistic or neurotypical privilege. And the people that focus on your disability and use you like that with the tokenism, they talk to you differently. They talk to you like you're an idiot. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, I completely understand what you're saying. And also, it kind of fits into the stereotype of, how people, like what we say, if you meet one person who's autistic, you meet one person who's autistic, and that's what they have, the stereotype of what autism is, and they just like, base you on that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just like they treat you based on that, but it's just, and that's kind of how, and that's how tokenism is. Tokenism is actually, like, it could be racist. It's also homophobic, transphobic, ableist, because they have this certain stereotype of what being a person of a marginalized, oppressed community is, and they treat you based on that, and they don't see the qualities that you actually have.
Yeah, and I can't accept that as someone who's a self-advocate myself.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, I
think right, because part of being trying to be diverse and inclusive, is to see the person as more than just, their labels, what makes them different, just seeing them as a person as well.
Okay, so now here's the fourth question, and then we're gonna get into your question and answer that you were supposed to talk about at the panel on Saturday. So name some examples of tokenism that you faced in the work environment or anywhere else.
Well, with me, because like I said, I haven't, like I told you, GCD, Georgia Council on Developmental Disabilities, that was really my only work experience, which I just finished, and it actually had to finish early because of this virus. But I wasn't the only, I was the first autistic intern there in a while. Me and one other person were the only autistic employees there, but I was like the only one who was working as part of like the advocacy portion of that organization. So they had a lot to, it was a learning experience for them as it was for me on how to, like, again, like I said, everyone on the spectrum is different, but I believe we do have some similarities between certain certain autistics. So it was a learning experience for them as like what an autistic person would go through, like some of what an autistic person would go through, I mean. But they didn't really treat me like as I wasn't a token there, if you know what I mean. So I haven't really dealt with tokenism myself, but I do know like I feel like this is what I believe, Miyah, and this is like, you could disagree or not. Like, I believe that, like, because, I am from ASAN, so I believe that, we're not a big fans of Autism Speaks. I believe that, especially after their logo change and that they, they didn't really change a lot, still haven't. And I feel like the autistic advocates for Autism Speaks are tokens. And that's how I feel. I know that's how, and now I don't know the whole situation, of course, but I'm just saying from my experience, I mean, not my experience, that's what I think, that they are tokens because I know like the problems with Autism Speaks. And that's the only thing I can think of is like autism advocates for Autism Speaks are tokens. I haven't really encountered any from in the workplace, but that's the only example I can come up with. If I offended anybody, I'm sorry, but that's what I think.
Okay, so here's your question for the panel. What efforts can employers make to ensure they don't hire autistic women and other minorities solely due to tokenism?
Well, there are many, actually. Like, for example, like, mainly, like, one obvious effort is to, like, make sure that the person they're hiring actually has the skills to do what's required and be hired because they are good at what's required. But it's also difficult because you also have to make sure you're diverse and inclusive and not have all your employees but be, like, neurotypical cis white men. And, diversity and inclusion are hot topics right now because they should be, because they're very important, and representation does matter. And again, the workplace should be inclusive and diverse a long time ago, and I'm glad it's finally happening. But the reason why we're dealing with this problem now of tokenism is because it's finally happening, because the workplace is now finally starting to get inclusive and diverse. You know what I mean? And it's also the big thing because, people with disabilities, especially like autistic people, have a higher unemployment rate than the general population, neurotypical people without a disability. Because last year, 2019, the unemployment rate for people with disabilities was 7.3% compared to the national unemployment rate of 3.6%. So that's double, And of all the autistics that go to college, only 15% of them get employed. So obviously we have to fix this problem of autistics not getting employed, but you also have to make sure that you don't hire them strictly due to tokenism. It is a tricky balance.
Yeah, it really. Oh, say another what?
Oh, was I interrupting? I'm sorry.
I thought you were done, but
no, I wasn't done. Another effort that can be made is to make sure when they hire someone from a marginalized or oppressed community like autistic people, don't pick them out as a representative for the entire company to show that they are diverse and inclusive. Like to be the spokesperson for the company. You know what I mean? Like, do not pick them out strictly for that. Like, don't pick them out to say, oh, this company is inclusive and diverse. No, that's not their responsibility. It's the company's responsibility, And another great effort is to hire more people than just one person. Obviously, don't just hire one autistic person to, in the whole entire company and that's it. Hire more, hire more people of color, hire more people with disabilities, and also try to keep employers should try to keep an open mind. Now, obviously, don't be racist or anti-Semitic or homophobic or transphobic or ableist. But, and ableism, by the way, is a discrimination of people with disabilities. And I think why people are ableist is because or racist or all these things, because they have a certain stereotype of what these people are like. And that needs to be shattered. You know what I mean? And so have an open mind and see that you can be surprised. In terms of ableism, people often think that because we're autistic or because people have this disability that they can't do the job, but we can. We do need accommodations. Like for example, I can't be in a loud environment. I can't be in a claustrophobic environment. I need breaks and I need clear directions, but I can do the job. So I think, does that answer the question? I think those are efforts that can be made from combating tokenism, is just like obviously hiring the person if they, for their qualification, making sure they have the qualifications, obviously, and also like have an open mind when hiring someone, don't have the stereotype of someone in their head, and obviously just don't hire just one person who's autistic or whatever, and hire more, and don't have like a marginal someone from an oppressed or marginalized community to represent the whole company and say, oh, we are diverse and inclusive. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. One of the things I'm going to mention that really ties into your answers, and I don't know if this is tokenism or not, but before I even would have thought of meeting Haley Moss and having us keynote at our panel, everywhere I kept seeing that she was the first autistic lawyer in the United States. And I saw that they also talked about some African-American racer in NASCAR who is supposed to be also autistic, and is first autistic to do this. And I personally think that's tokenism right there. And that is also not true, because while Haley Moss got her qualifications as an attorney and she passed the bar, she is not the only autistic who is a lawyer. Have you ever listened to Lydia Brown?
I follow her on Twitter.
Lydia's pronouns are they, them.
Yeah.
Well, Lydia Brown is an attorney, and as far as I'm concerned, I have met at least one other lawyer, and I've met some highly educated people that work for ASAN, and they are qualified people. And so that's absolutely not true. It's like people are saying that it's the first autistic to do that, first autistic to do this. And I have a problem with that. And when I heard them say that about Haley, I thought, what? No. But would you consider that tokenism?
Kind of, yeah, because I think, first of all, I think it's a shame that we live in a society where there's still so many firsts. Like, first this, first that. Like, there shouldn't be so many firsts anymore, That's where we are as a society. But I think I would say, like, because there are so many people who we don't know were autistic back in the day. So I think maybe say, like, first openly autistic. Like Haley, I agree that Haley Moss probably isn't the first autistic lawyer, but maybe like the first openly autistic lawyer, because she's the first one that we know was autistic at the time. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing with that, though, is Lydia Brown is an openly autistic lawyer. Why are they?
Oh, she is. Okay.
Why is the media ignoring them?
That is true. Yeah. That could be because of racism too.
And
Isn't Lydia Brown like Asian or something?
yeah,
Yeah.
they're Chinese American.
Yes. So yeah, yeah, I think it is, now that I think about it, it is actually tokenism too, because, like, again, that's singling out like their, just that they're autistic, or they're this or that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And, and also it's not true. It's not true. Like you said, Lydia Brown, they are an openly autistic lawyer. And that's weird that I didn't know that, actually. So thanks for informing me of that, Miyah.
Yeah, Lydia Brown often talks about that they are a lawyer whenever they do their talks. And I mean, they went to a very exclusive school at Harvard Law, or Brown, I think. But uh, they are now a practicing lawyer, and I believe that they became sworn in at the same time as Haley Moss.
Yeah. So Haley's not really the first, right?
No, she's not. And uh, and I definitely don't want to be the first autistic at Georgia State to be teaching statistics.
Right. And you might not, because, like you said, you probably aren't. And there's also, I believe, there's so many people that were autistic or are autistic that we don't know. I don't know if you heard, but the rate of autistic, the diagnosis has increased. It was 1 in 59, now it's 1 in 54. So there's a lot more autistics that than we think, and you know what I mean? So, and there was a lot more people who were autistic that just weren't diagnosed because the diagnosis didn't exist yet.
Okay, so, well, could you name some examples of autistic or neurodiverse women who face tokenism in the workplace?
Uh, See, this is kind of the problem, because I only had one work experience, which was Georgia Council on Developmental Disabilities that just ended. I don't, I haven't seen any that I know of. I, well, actually, maybe I do. Mimi, right?
Yes.
I think she's she's had some problems in her job in the past with getting accommodations. I don't know if she's the only autistic employee at her job, but it sounds to me like she is. So maybe she might be dealing with tokenism, but I'm not entirely sure. Aaron, I think, might be he's not a woman, but he's sorry about that. But I was just thinking of autistics who, he's the only other autistic that, I think he's the only autistic at his job. But in terms of autistic women, I only know Mimi and actually you, Miyah, because you were just telling me, like, I don't think you have any other autistic women at your job, or any autistic at CLD, right?
Not that I think of, no.
Yeah, and you just told me like your experience with tokenism, and you also just at your previous company.
Yeah.
So yeah, you and Mimi. So
Well, yeah, the owner of that last company, I don't think she knew diddly squat what she was doing. She had a son on the severe end of the spectrum, and he had a bit more challenges than either you and I did.
yeah, maybe say a bit more challenges.
Yes, he's a bit more challenges, and
Weird, because
yeah, which they would prefer to as low functioning, but they had ideologies at that company. Anybody that worked there in that program was broken or not all there, and so that was the big problem. And then the owner of the company felt sorry for other people with disabilities, and she wanted to run a business. and she wanted to take care of herself and her family and her autistic son. And then and then she decided to collaborate with different work programs in Gwinnett County, right here in Georgia. And so she ended up collaborating with this one work program, and she knew some people there. So I ended up getting hired, not because I was autistic. I got hired because I had a disability. And they didn't do anything for me, neither her or the job coaches. Instead, they just put me in a room and said, get to work.
Oh, wow.
Get to work. And then one time or two, we did a few things, like we got together and had an autism walk to cure her son's autism.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. It was fun at the time. And I mean, I liked it at that job in the beginning, but I saw a lot of things there that just were not acceptable. And that was one of them. And that owner had hired some people on the spectrum, and at first she seemed like she cared, as she always talked about Aspie's doing this in a cool news story, and Aspie's doing that. And then when she hired some other quote Aspies like myself, she couldn't relate to them, and she bullied them and whispered behind their backs. So would you say what she did was tokenism by just hiring people with disabilities in her work program?
Absolutely.
How so?
Because again, she just hired people with disabilities. Like you said, she just hired you just because you have a disability, not because of the skills you have, correct?
Yeah, and none of those people offered to build my skills up. They would offer me something, and then if I made a mistake, they'd take it away from me again and give it to somebody else. And
yeah, that's just wrong. That is just 100% wrong. And that's unfortunately a lot of the times the cases with tokenism, whether if you're a person of color or LGBTQ plus or person with disability, any marginalized / oppressed communities.
They were also very sexist there too.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
they were sexist, and they were homophobes there, and they didn't like it that I cut my hair short, and they would tell me that I was mentally ill. They'd also tell me that, well, you transgender, lesbian. They were ism capital of the autism community, or disability community for that matter.
I'm sorry you had to go through that, Miyah.
Yeah, but I got out of there 8 years ago, and I've been happy.
Hopefully, a lot has kind of changed since then, so hopefully they've changed their way of thinking.
Yeah, well, I don't think so. They're a very small-minded group of people, and the owner of that company is very narcissistic and very toxic. She's right no matter what, and she's a very difficult person to deal with, or she can be. You can't reason with her at all without her interrupting you and screaming at you. So she's not very professional, and she was not very supportive. And that's another sign of tokenism, is people just aren't supportive, Kayla. And it's just like everything is me, 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 me.
Yeah, it's about boosting their image and not about the person they hired, not about helping them, not about how they're doing, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And see, the person that that is the token, sooner or later they want more opportunities, but they're just kind of stuck in an eternal spot. And that person says, well, I've done this for about XYZ years, and I still haven't gotten a promotion. I haven't gotten a raise. And I've noticed that the people that treat you like a token, if you confront them, they can turn nasty on you and then, quote, blame the victim. Have you seen that happen?
I mean, personally, no, but I'm sure that it has happened.
So, well, thank you so much, Kayla.
You're welcome. I hope I answered the questions right.
Yes, and before I go, I have a few announcements to make. If you like what Kayla talked about, please be sure to check her out. She is a public speaker. And be sure to share this with anybody in your networks. And if you are an employer or if you are practicing tokenism yourself, Kayla and I are asking you to stop. And I mean that 100%. And I believe Kayla means that 100%.
I do.
So anyway,
I just have one also thing to say. I don't know if you had to say this. Please register for the panel. Were you going to say that, Miyah?
No. So please stay tuned for more information about this women's panel. And please do yourself a favor and learn more about Haley Moss. And please be sure to learn more about the other women. Kayla Rodriguez is brilliant. And please be sure to check out my next interviewer, my next guest, which will take place next Sunday night, Ashley Dudley. She has experience as a dental assistant. She is a wonderful woman. And I think you're going to be in for a real treat for that. And then,
awesome.
Say what? She's awesome?
She's awesome.
Yes, she is. And then I can't wait to hear from Haley. Can't wait to talk to her because she's very excited to be on my show. And then you can be sure to listen to Kimberly Kemp. Can't wait to hear from her.
Great. Everyone on the panel is great.
Yes, they are. I mean, we're a really, really great team. And then Jennifer Reese-Polson, who is our manager, when I'm done interviewing all of you, she and I are going to do an interview together.
Okay.
And so there's that. And then I have my surprise mystery guest. I still need to get in touch with them. They said yes last week. And I emailed them and I said, what would you like to talk about? I thought about talking about employment with this person, but I think I'd like to talk about something closer to sensory friendly, or maybe something with autism and anger management. One of those two, but I'm thinking sensory processing disorders and things, other issues like anxiety. So I'm going to have to check that out. But
and sorry, sorry, that's my cat. I have one quick announcement. Can I say?
Yeah, Darcy, don't interrupt.
Sorry. Yeah, Darcy, that was my cat. Thought I closed the door. If you guys want to check out Autistic Self-Advocacy Atlanta, you can find us on Facebook. Also, please check out Autistic Self-Advocacy Network on Facebook. And they have a website. We currently just have if you want us to check out ASAA, Autistic Self-Advocacy Atlanta, you just find us on Facebook. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much. If you like what I'm doing, please be sure to follow me right here on Podbean and Spotify. And if you're interested in my YouTube channel, I have lots of vlogs on there that feature me on the go. They're not exactly Casey vlogs, but they were inspired by my hero, Casey Neistat, who is a huge YouTube star. And I think you'll find me doing a lot of what I can't. And I think you're going to like some of my adventures. Those videos show me that I'm not living up to people's stereotypes. And then you can find me on WordPress. These get archived down there as well as YouTube. So please be sure to check that out. And please be sure to share my podcasts and be sure to get the word out. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
All right.